This question comes from Alex, who asks, what if tornadoes covered the whole planet?
At first, it sounds like a fantasy straight out of a disaster movie, but the reality would be much stranger and far more extreme than most people imagine.
Tornadoes are formed when warm, moist air meets cold, dry air, creating spinning columns of air called mesocyclones. Normally, tornadoes are localized and short-lived, but imagine if this mechanism occurred everywhere at once. Every continent, every ocean, and even polar regions would be engulfed in spiraling columns of air, moving at hundreds of kilometers per hour. The first and most obvious effect would be total destruction of infrastructure. Buildings, roads, bridges, and power lines would be shredded instantly.
No human engineering could withstand the constant bombardment of winds that can exceed 500 kilometers per hour. Entire cities would vanish within minutes.
But it wouldn't just be human-made structures that suffer. Forests, grasslands, and farmlands would be flattened repeatedly. Animals, unable to find shelter, would either be swept away or crushed. Marine life wouldn't be spared either. Tornadoes forming over oceans would churn waters violently, disrupting ecosystems and causing massive loss of life. The climate itself would go haywire. Tornadoes transfer enormous amounts of heat and energy from the surface into the upper atmosphere. With the whole planet engulfed, the jet streams would collapse, monsoons would fail, and rainfall patterns would become chaotic. Some areas could face torrential flooding, while others might see complete droughts despite the constant storms. The atmosphere would literally be in chaos. Pressure systems would become unpredictable, making traditional weather models useless. Lightning strikes would increase dramatically due to the constant formation and collision of charged clouds. The combination of wind, rain, and lightning would make survival almost impossible anywhere on Earth. Volcanoes and tectonic activity could also be affected. Rapid changes in atmospheric pressure from constant tornado activity might trigger earthquakes or volcanic eruptions in vulnerable regions. The shaking ground would further amplify the destruction on the surface. From a human perspective, survival would require extreme measures. Underground bunkers might provide temporary refuge, but supply chains would collapse immediately. Food and water scarcity would become critical within days. Even if some humans survived, organized society would likely collapse, and the planet would resemble a chaotic wasteland. Interestingly, tornadoes could alter the oceans too. Constantly churning waters would prevent stable currents, affecting marine ecosystems. Fish populations would crash, coral reefs would be destroyed, and global fishing industries would vanish. Ice caps could melt faster due to friction and energy transfer, raising sea levels and adding to the chaos. Some ecosystems might adapt in surprising ways. Extremophile species and flying animals could exploit the constant winds, but for the majority of life, adaptation would be impossible. Plants rooted in the ground would be completely destroyed unless they evolved new anchoring systems, a process far too slow to match the speed of change. Economically, this scenario would be catastrophic. Every major city, port, airport, and industrial center would be obliterated. Global trade would collapse, governments would struggle to function, and billions of lives would be at risk. Insurance systems and emergency services would be utterly overwhelmed. In the end, if tornadoes covered the whole planet, Earth would be unrecognizable. Coasts, forests, deserts, and cities would all be continuously reshaped by immense wind forces. Survival would depend entirely on human ingenuity, underground shelters, and extreme adaptation. This thought experiment shows just how delicate life on Earth is. Tornadoes may be localized and destructive,
But imagine multiplying them by every square kilometer on the planet.
The result isn't just chaos, it's a complete reshaping of Earth's surface, climate, and ecosystems in ways that would challenge every form of life.